don't know about everybody else, but I'm getting pretty tired of this transfer window already. Links, links, links. It's all I'm seeing. Manchester United are linked to strikers. We did a video on potential strikers that Manchester United could look to bring in this summer. There's links to a potential goalkeeper joining Manchester United, as we've spoken about before as well. But I gotta be honest, for me, I think the most important position that Manchester United need to fill now that they brought in the left 10 and the right 10 is a central midfielder. I'm not going to lie, I have been itching for the start of the Premier League season. I genuinely cannot wait for Manchester United to play against Arsenal in match day 1 of the Premier League. I've gone back and I've been rewatching old games for Manchester United, just wanting to kind of look at the difference in midfield pivots that Ruben Amorim played throughout the season. And I gotta be completely honest, I am having a really hard time trying to find a midfield pair that is going to work for the entirety of next season. Ruben Amorim's first preseason game with Manchester United. First of all, want to say huge thanks to everyone who gave it a watch. It is my most watched video on the channel. Nothing too crazy, but for me, I really appreciate the support. So if you're liking the content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be dropping content all season long. Everything to do with Manchester United. We're going to be dropping analysis videos. We're going to be dropping transfer news. So if you like that kind of content, remember to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. So in that analysis video, I was talking about the limitations in the midfield two of Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro. I thought in the second half, Kobe and Ugarte were much better. I think having a ball carrier like Kobe who is comfortable in tight spaces, who is, like I said in that video, probably the comfiest midfielder that Manchester United have in regards to dropping a shoulder and beating a press. When you pair that with a midfielder like Emmanuel Ugarte, whose primary focus is to kind of just keep it ticking, to win the ball back, he can cover large zones. I think that those two profiles, in theory, work, and they work well. So where is the problem? Well, after Bruno Fernandes stayed at Manchester United this summer and United brought in a left 10 and a right 10 in Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, which were the two big signings for Manchester United this summer, I have a hard time believing that Bruno Fernandes is not going to play in center midfield for large parts of next season. So what does that mean for the other midfielders? Well, apparently reports have come out that Manchester United have tried to move on from Casemiro. It hasn't worked. You look at Ugarte, who, in his second season, I think hopefully takes some strides to becoming a better all-around midfielder, improves his game more specifically on the ball. I think he does a lot of good things off the ball, but in the midfield too, you need both of your midfielders to be really comfortable on the ball. And I just don't know how big of a jump he's going to make and if he's going to be the long-term partner for a Bruno Fernandes. And then you look at a Kobe Mainoo. I mean, I've been watching a lot of footage from Kobe in my spare time. I think because Manchester United fans are so excited about this player, they forget how young he is. He still has so much time to continue to grow and mold into that player that he wants to become. But when you look at a midfield pivot of a Bruno and Kobe, I just don't necessarily know how well that translates. in the Premier League, most specifically when it comes to defending transitions. We saw in large parts of the first 45 minutes against Leeds that Bruno was oftentimes up beside Cheeto and was essentially looking to lead the press. So what does that mean for Kobe if he's going to be playing in a midfield two with Bruno? Well, he's going to have to defend large zones like Casemiro was in the first half. And there were often times where they were pulling him out, playing balls in behind, and United were really struggling to defend the center of the pitch. And Leeds were actually finding some joy in picking apart Manchester United's midfield. Although there have been talks for a striker, I'm recording this video on the 24th of July. It's going to be out on the 25th of July. Reports have come out, Fabrizio has said that apparently Manchester United have approached Aston Villa for Ollie Watkins, so they are prioritizing a striker. And that's fine. I spoke about how Manchester United need goals, and I am still of the opinion that you need to bring in players who can score goals, and most notably have proved that they can score goals consistently in the Premier League. But my concern is, with Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo signed, and now potentially looking to bring in a striker, will Manchester United hopefully and probably score more goals next season? Absolutely. But where does that leave the midfield? Obviously, there are still players that Manchester United are looking to move on. You look at Jadon Sancho, you look at Antony, you look at Malacia, you look at Garnacho. I think Manchester United need to prioritize that center midfield position. So let's walk through a few options who I think Manchester United could look to bring in that could platform a Bruno Fernandes or a Kobe Mainu and really give Manchester United the balance that they need. So as of right now, I think Manchester United are looking quite healthy in the attacking positions. You obviously brought in Brian Mbeumo. You have Mateus Cunha who can play in the left 10. You have Bruno who can play in either of these 10s. You have Ahmad who can play in the right 10 if you want to shift Diogo to a wing back. You even have a Mason Mount or a Joshua Zirkzee you can play in the 10. And even a Kobe Mainu as well. We've seen him play in the 10s before. An abundance of options for Manchester United to play across the front three. You can argue there's a lack of a pure number 9, and that's fair, which is why apparently they're targeting Ollie Watkins. We made a video on the potential of Mateta or Sesko joining Manchester United as well. But I think in the attacking options, Manchester United are actually not in a horrible place because they've done a good job in bringing in Brian Mbeumo and bringing in Mateus Cunha. But where Manchester United are lacking right now is center midfield. This is what Manchester United has right now in midfield. Bruno, Kobe, Ugarte, Casemiro. You can include Toby Collar if you want, but for the purpose of this video, we are going to just be looking at these four. I don't necessarily believe that out of these four midfielders, you can pick two and feel super confident in having them as a midfield pivot. Again, I think that Ugarte alongside a progressive player, a progressive midfielder works. But does Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte work long term? What does that mean for Kobe Mainu? I don't necessarily know if Casemiro has the legs to play week in, week out in the Premier League. And obviously, it is good to have depth. It is good to be able to rotate the squad. But I think that Manchester United need to improve here, and they need to improve here this summer. So let's look at three potential midfielders that United could go after that could help them improve. So the first player's name that's been thrown around that Manchester United could potentially look at is a Javier Guerra. Mind you, there haven't been any concrete links, anything to really get super excited about. But I've been watching a lot of Javier Guerra tape, and I think this is a really exciting midfield profile. Again, what I'd say is I don't necessarily know about the balance in midfield. His defensive stats and numbers aren't necessarily the best. He is more of a facilitator, very comfortable when being pressed. He is the typical Spanish midfielder who is also very comfortable moving forward. He likes to carry, he's a good dribbler, and he's only 22 years of age. Currently at Valencia, I don't think that Manchester United are going to go after a Javier Guerra. There was reports from Marca that apparently there could be some interest from Manchester United, but I think if he's available, I think if you can get him at a reasonable fee, I do think that Javier Guerra could be a player that Manchester United look to bring in and help bolster the midfield. So everyone's talking about him, so why not talk about him? Why not have him make an appearance in this video? Let's talk about Baleba. Everybody on social media, Manchester United fans, everywhere I'm seeing are talking about the idea of bringing in a Baleba to Manchester United. Look, I really like Carlos Baleba. I think he would be a fantastic signing for Manchester United. Do I think it's realistic? Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think number one, Brighton are going to ask for an extraordinary fee. This is a very young and talented midfielder who has shown great ability to be able to play center midfield in the Premier League. And I just don't necessarily know if Manchester United have the funds to go after a Carlos Baleba. I like to both do my own scouting and analysis on the player by watching the games. Carlos Baleba is in the 90th percentile in interceptions. He's in the 86th percentile for tackles and interceptions. Ruben Amorim stated that Manchester United need pace in midfield. It's very obvious when you watch United that they lack the legs to be able to compete, especially with the physicality of what the Premier League offers. Carlos Baleba has shown he has the physicality to not only play, but dominate in the Premier League. The reason I would like a Carlos Baleba is his ability to kind of slot right in here perfectly beside a Kobe Mainu. Again, with the attacking options, you have Mbumo. You could even play him as a false 9 with Bruno and Cunha as the 10s. If you bring in Ollie Watkins, you could play Ollie Watkins in the 9. You could maybe give Kobe some rest, play Bruno in center midfield beside a Carlos Baleba, and you could bring in an Ollie Watkins to play in the 9. I think he gives you a lot of flexibility. Again, I don't think that this is a realistic signing. I don't even think that Manchester United are currently discussing Carlos Baleba. We haven't seen, or I haven't seen anyways, any reports on a Carlos Baleba to Manchester United. But obviously he would be a very exciting signing. And to see a Carlos Baleba and a Kobe Mainu midfield for the years to come, I think Manchester United would be quite set. Whether it is a midfield 2 that they continue to play, whether they adapt and go to a midfield 3. Carlos Baleba would be a dream signing, but not necessarily a signing that I think is going to be realistic, at least not this summer. Okay, and if you know me, you know that my dream signing that I think could happen, that I think could be realistic, given the fact that this club is apparently interested in Alejandro Garnacho. Also, this club is the team that the number 9 that Manchester United apparently want is playing for. I would love if Manchester United did everything they could to bring in Amadou Onana to Manchester United. So just hear me out. This is what Manchester United could look like in the final third if they brought in an Amadou Onana. You could have Cunha and Mbumo occupying the space in between the center halves and the fullbacks. You could have Ahmad playing essentially as that right winger, nice and high and wide. Dorgu, who I think is going to have a breakout season, connecting with Cunha in that 10 role. But for me, it gives Bruno the license to pick up these spaces and even when it's necessary to be able to, like we always say, stretch that back line. The thing is, Watkins likes to get in behind, and Mbeumo likes to get in behind. Dorgu likes to get in behind. There's a lot of, all of a sudden, Manchester United have a lot of potential. All of a sudden, Manchester United have a lot of forward players that like to create the depth so that players like Bruno, players like Cunha can play underneath here and create volume, either shots or get crosses into the box with these forward players kind of attacking the area. Why Onana would be so important is because we know that Bruno likes to get so forward and essentially connect and be so close with the attackers, be essentially, sometimes playing like a secondary striker. If you have an Onana here, the second that Manchester United lose possession, you have a player who's very comfortable covering this ground, very comfortable being super aggressive and pressing when needed, or having the ability to delay and give his teammates a chance to get back into position. And we know that Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo are very willing runners off the ball, both offensively and defensively, as well as having wing backs like Dorgu and Ahmad. And again, and I know not everyone's going to agree with this, and that's completely fine. We all have our own opinions, but having Eleni Yoro that can step out and be super aggressive. We've seen how aggressive De Ligt can be. We've seen how aggressive Diogo can be. That counter press with an Onana profile sitting in behind the front 5 or 6, if you include Bruno, I think it would give Manchester United a lot of stability. And again, the thing with Amadou Onana is he's actually a lot more comfortable on the ball than people give him credit for. I think because of his size and his stature, he is, a engine in midfield. He will run the entire 90 minutes. He will disrupt play. He will win tackles. He will win duels. He provides all of that. But he's also a very good footballer on the ball. He can play forward. He can play diagonals. Like, he has the ability to play any kind of pass. Is he as technical as a Javier Guerra? No. But he is very good on the ball, and I just can't speak enough of how good he is off the ball. I think he would be the perfect profile for Manchester United. He could play beside Bruno. He could play beside Kobe. When you're leading in a game and you want to shore up the midfield, he could even play beside Ugarte. He could even be the more advanced of the two. He gives Manchester United options in midfield, and in my opinion, Manchester United desperately need options in midfield. going into next season. So those are three midfielders that could potentially join Manchester United. There's also names like Adam Morton. But aside from that, I haven't really heard any midfield names that Manchester United are, let alone linked with, even interested in. I think that this is a very important position that Manchester United need to get right. And I think the potential for getting it right is there this summer. But let me know what you think. As always, I'm always so intrigued to hear what everyone else has to say. If you could bring in one center midfielder to come and play either beside a Bruno Fernandes, to come and play beside a Kobe Mainu, who would it be? Let me know in the comments down below who you want Manchester United to bring in this summer in center midfield. We'll be dropping an analysis video on Ruben Amorim's second preseason game this Saturday. I am looking forward to it. Once again, if you're liking the content, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to me and the channel. That is it for this one. I appreciate everyone for watching. Until next time, peace.